Hey folks, and we're back. So in this video, we're going to talk about widows and orphans specifically. And in order to do that, I'm going to try and demonstrate to you exactly what a widow or orphan is. But what I want to do is I want to try deleting and modifying text in InDesign to make that happen. And you can watch what happens and how InDesign tries to correct my mistakes as I try and show you this example. So to start with, we're going to try creating a widow. A widow is going to be a single word or a very short sentence at the end of a paragraph here. So let's just go ahead and start. Whoops, look at that. I just tried to delete these two words to get rid of that to make a widow for you. And boy, InDesign just does not want to let me do it. That's so funny, isn't it? See how it's automatically trying to correct the text as I go? At some point, you're going to hit a time where you actually do have a widow or orphan. So what might be a little bit easier for us to show here is I'm going to show an orphan. What would happen if I had one line up at the next column? So I'm just going to copy this and paste this. And again, it really doesn't want me to, it really tries to fix your mistakes. But let's notice here this lone line at the top of the next column. This is not easy to read, right? You've got all your information down here, and then this one singular line up here, that's no good. All right, so three ways you can correct this. The first is to just plain rewrite the copy, just like I did. I rewrote the copy to make this happen. I could rewrite the copy to make it not happen. Great if you happen to have an editor by you, not so great if you're not a writer or you can't change the content. So let's look at some other methods. This is all about space, right? So a second method that we could use is to actually change the size of the type and make it take up less space. However, we don't want to use that because we're in a magazine template right now. So if we do that, then we're going to be breaking the template rules and making it look inconsistent throughout the magazine. So we can rule that out. What's our last method to deal with this? Well, the one thing that you can safely do in a magazine template to adjust this sort of thing without affecting the look and feel of the rest of the magazine is to adjust the tracking, the spacing between letters over an entire paragraph. You can find the tracking over here in character. And we went over this briefly in our earlier lectures, but tracking is, again, that spacing between each letter over an entire paragraph or a longer set of text, multiple letters. Kerning is just between two letters. So kerning usually comes in pairs. For example, F's and I's are usually a kerned pair and they're kerned closely together to look really nice. But here we're going to adjust the tracking because the idea is to reduce the amount of space this entire paragraph is taking so that this line will go down here. And you can start really small here. You want to make this adjustment as minimal as possible. You are going to either bump it up to make it take up more space or down to condense it. We're going to try and condense it in this case. So here I'm going to start with -1. And boy, that didn't do a whole lot, huh? So underneath this drop down, you can see that this goes in ranges of 5. So we're going to try -5 first. -10, and we're just going to keep going until we find something that does the job. Then we're going to pause for a moment and evaluate. Is this what we want? So we're going to take off our glasses here and we're going to look at this. And what I see from this when I kind of blur my eyes or I take off my glasses is that this paragraph is looking much heavier and tighter than these ones. The difference is too great. So in this case, going down on our tracking is not going to work. It's too hard to read at -50. And what I would say is that when you're doing this kind of work, try to stay within plus or minus 20. That's a little bit of an arbitrary number there, but generally speaking, that's going to be close enough where you're not going to worry about it as much. You're not going to notice it as much. So now let's try going up. Let's try 5. Oh, 5 worked really easily. And that's really hardly noticeable at all between the two of those. In fact, maybe we don't even need 5. Let's just try the lowest number possible to get this to go to the next line. You only need 2. And with this type of fine refining of your typography, you can fix these mistakes such as widows and orphans without having to rewrite copy or drastically change the way each paragraph looks from paragraph to paragraph. And that's how you can really improve the typography on a long form scale. All right, so I finally got one singular word to show up here. And again, this is called a widow. So at the end is a widow, at the top is an orphan. Kind of funny distinction. But the idea behind this is the same. For this, maybe just on a sentence or two level, you could try, since it's just a little bit of text that needs to go, you could try decreasing it. And you might find that, we're getting up into -40 territory. That's not going to work so well. So then you might want to go to the whole paragraph and say, okay, what's -5 look like? You could do the arrows down and get some of that. But, oh no, what did we just do? We introduced this. So now we have another typographical problem where a single line is right at the bottom of a column. You don't want that. In cases like these, what you're going to do is you're going to use your discretion in adding a line break. So here you can do a shift return, and that will put that up to the next line. Another way that you could solve this is you could just decrease the frame so that they end in the same sort of place. And again, notice that this is going to bring in the line breaks that you just had. So you're going to have to do a lot of little work to get these to feel really good and really even. But this is your goal, to have a relatively even rag, right? So no like big jumpies here. You want it to be relatively even. You also want your type to have even lines at the top and the bottom of your columns. So this is going to take a lot of work to get done really well. And you can also use some of these techniques to help fit your content into a certain amount of space. For example, if you have a layout length restriction, such as 6 pages, you may try to adjust the frame size. But another thing that you can do is across the board, take down the tracking a little bit, -5, and suddenly a lot more text will be fitting in. So that's absolutely an option too. So the further in on your layout you are, let's say we're on page 20, a small tracking change like that could save you entire pages of length. So definitely keep it in your back pocket. We learned a lot here, huh? So as a reminder, you want to be looking for that good rag. You want to use tracking to help control your rag, as well as improve the spacing between things, and fix any widows or orphans that you see throughout your text. Next, using some of this new terminology that we've learned, we're going to learn how to apply this to justified text, which is like typography on hard mode. I'll see you in just a moment.